tipping of scales and the balance of time preceded.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Now today I'm going to be doing a review of a brand new album just released on Friday there. I'm going to be looking at Paul Weller's Fat Pop Volume 1. So yes, I'll just be doing the usual thing in this video, giving a bit of background information about the album, then showing you my vinyl copy as well as a CD version of the album, and then I'll go through each of the 12 tracks in detail. So this is Paul Weller's 16th solo studio album. It follows hot off the heels of last year's On Sunset, which thanks to the COVID pandemic, Weller didn't get the chance to perform or tour that album, so instead he focused on new music, and this album was the result. So initially he and his band worked remotely on some new material, but also revisiting some old material as well, some songs which hadn't fitted on previous albums, sort of some outtakes and that. And then once the restrictions eased over the summer months, they were able to enter the studio and finish off the album with his longtime producer Jan Stan Kybert. During the making of the album, it was jokingly referred to, or was going to be called Paul Weller's greatest hits, to reflect the fact that Weller thought that each song kind of works on its own and almost could have been a single. And most of the reviews for the album have been very strong as well, many praising its loose and playful feel, and it's still a bit early for the midweek chart update, but I wouldn't be surprised if this did get to #1 in the UK. I think it would be very well deserved. So I'll show you my vinyl copy of it here. So this is the red vinyl version, so it's got the hype sticker there. It's not a gatefold or anything, this one, but it's still quite nicely packaged. I do like the cover. I think it's one of the stronger covers what he's had. Certainly better than On Sunset, which was a rather poor cover. And there's the back of it there, and I like the flip backs and that on it. Just gives it a very nice retro flavour to it. It's got the track listing, and then inside here you've got the record, which we'll come to, but then a lovely big poster here. So it's just got on one side just the album cover, and then the other side is all of the lyrics. Now, I suppose I maybe would have preferred it had this been in some sort of booklet. Might have been a bit more practical sort of thing to kind of read along with the lyrics and that. But it is a lovely poster though. Yeah, certainly something you could almost frame it. It's very nice. And then the record itself is just in a inner sleeve here, which has a lovely photo of Weller on that side. And it's just blank on the other side, and then the record, as I said, this is the red vinyl version. It's on Polydor, which he moved to, I believe, last year. So yeah, that's the vinyl record looked at. And then I'm also just going to show this CD, which is the deluxe CD, which is a three CD box set. This one here, and this was only I think £15. I got this on his official website, and this is great value. I mean, it's got the album on it, and then it's got the Midsummer Music special, which was a live stream thing he did last year, and then also a CD of some bonus tracks. But you just it opens up like that, and then you get some nice little postcard prints there, which are really cool. And then the album itself again is kind of just a replica off the vinyl, again same in a sleeve, and then a kind of fold out poster, again just with all the lyrics. So this is a bit more practical sort of thing, to read along to the lyrics and credits for each track as well. So that's the main album, and then as I said, you've also got the Midsummer Music special as well. Like I said, a live stream thing from I think November last year. Unfortunately, this is just the audio of it. I would have maybe preferred it to have been on DVD, perhaps. I think that would have been a nice touch. But certainly it's good to get this officially released, because there's some great live versions of a few tracks from this album, and then some On Sunset songs as well. And there's it's just packaged like that, in a kind of in a sleeve and a CD. And then the other disc is a bonus audio disc, which is just in a plain like sort of case this one here. And there's 6 bonus tracks on here. They're all kind of like acoustic, all I would say sort of like kind of demo recordings. Like, I mean, like they're with like the band, but they're certainly not. They're not sort of like finished, I wouldn't say. But certainly the best of these ones is called "Round the Floor," which I think should have made the album and is a fantastic song. And then there's some other stuff as well, like that. The last track, Fat Mix, is a kind of sort of dub track with sort of like about 60 minutes. It's quite far out, that one. Okay, so anyway, I will now go over each of the album songs. So yes, 12 tracks in total, so I'll score each track out of 10, and then use those scores to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. So the album kicks off with the song Cosmic Fringes, which is the first track we heard from the album. It was the first sort of kind of single preview track released back in February, and it's quite an abrasive sounding song. There's quite a modern sounding like rocker, like I would say, with a kind of thumping sort of like electro beat and lots of like kind of guitar effects kind of going on, a lot of like overdriven guitars and that. It kind of reminds me of a throwback to kind of Wake Up the Nation, Sonic Kicks sort of vibe to it. Was sort of like maybe like what like I was thinking the whole album like would be like, especially like with like the title, like an artwork. It all kind of has that sort of feel to it, very sort of like instant and sort of like quite electronic like sort of vibe to it. Lyrically, it's kind of got like a lot of swagger and like attitude to it. He sings something like "I don't believe my luck when I see him in the mirror," and yeah, it is a great opening track. It really works, like opening the album. But I wouldn't say it's representative of the album like as a whole. Not as representative like as I would have maybe been hoping it would have been. But it's still a good opening song though, and I would give it a 10 out of 10. Next track up is called True, and this is a song which is just, I think it's a really compelling track list. It's a duet with a female singer called Leah Metcalf. She's in a band called the Mysterines, who I think Weller's maybe produced or certainly I guess like worked alongside. And it's a fun song, this. It is quite upbeat, but it's also quite laid back like at the same time. It's very kind of rustic production, a lot of like kind of like acoustic guitars and this kind of call and response like sort of like thing like going on between them. But it's got a lot of twists and turns like in like the arrangement to it. It kind of like you've got a bit of saxophone coming in, and then there's bits where it gets sort of like it's more intense, and then it kind of goes down, and it's all delivered in I think it's 2 minutes 30 seconds this. So there's a lot going on like on this song, and that's what I think makes it compelling and makes it kind of worth returning to. So yeah, certainly like fits the theme like of the album, kind of fat pop sort of thing. But this is kind of like sort of fits that like to like a T. So yeah, True for me would get a 10 out of 10. And then the next track is the title track, which is possibly my least favourite on the album, I would say, for now. It kind of starts off very kind of similar kind of guitar tones to some tracks from On Sunset. Very kind of summery and very sort of jazzy and laid back like sort of feel to it. And lyrically, it's about kind of music sort of being there for you sort of thing. He sings with it like, who's been a friend when you needed one? Who gives a fuck when no one else does? Fat pop. It's kind of, it is quite a fun song. It's quite like sort of like laid back and maybe doesn't take itself like too seriously. And then there's a lot of like kind of like effects kind of come in like throughout like the track, and I think it's more the kind of production what makes this song like good. I think like when like kind of like you strip it back, I think it's just a meh sort of song, like, but like I said, like there's a lot going on like on it, kind of like arrangement and production wise, that it might start to grow on me. But like, I mean, like for the time being, I will give it a 7 out of 10 there for Fat Pop. Next song up was the kind of main single from the album, the one like he done like a lot of like promotion for, Shades of Blue, which I think like an understandable choice like for like a main single, because it's such a catchy sort of bouncy song, very Beatlesque, this one I would say. He co-wrote the song with his daughter Leia, and I think it works really well, the kind of two sections, like the verse like what like Weller wrote, and then like the chorus like which like Leia wrote, and like great touching lyrics on it as well, like that chorus he sings there, spend all your life just to find out, all that matters is close to you, and they sing together really well. It's just it's a really, really nice song, this. But I would say, and this is quite rare for me, that I actually wish that it would go on a bit longer, especially like kind of like the fade out. I think it just kind of, it sort of like fades out a bit too abruptly, and a little bit, it just sounds unnatural, like a little bit. I think they could have maybe done like a couple more cycles like off like the song, but I suppose it is one of these things, it leaves you wanting more, and that can't be a bad thing. So yeah, Shades of Blue would get a 10 out of 10 from me.
Gotta keep our eyes out, looking for good times.
Next one up is called Glad Times, which again was another one of the kind of singles preview tracks from the album, and this is a much more slower song, much more of a ballad, like you would say, and I think it's one of the best kind of songs like off this kind of style which she's done. Begins very slow, very kind of transcendent and dreamy, with all these kind of different sort of guitar loops and strings of that, and well as very sort of crooning voice. But then the song goes through so many different hoops and different changes, it kind of twists and turns a little bit, but I think all the sections work together really perfectly, and then it's all kind of brought together with this gorgeous string arrangement. So yeah, for me, a brilliant song here, another song which I think will go down like as a classic. So yeah, Glad Times for me would get a 10 out of 10.
Somewhere in the cobwebs of your mind.
Next track up closes the first side. It's called Cobwebs Connections, which is a more sort of stripped back and sort of folky acoustic track, and it's a perfectly pleasant song and potentially may grow on me a little bit more. I just think it sounds a little bit unremarkable. It's sort of like, it's well a kind of, he's very much like in his comfort zone like on this song, and it's not too different from material like on like on the last couple of albums, and lyrically it's very similar to the song Village from On Sunset, kind of about sort of being content like with like your place like in the world. He sings like, can you see the good things in your life, and like that kind of like sort of thing, and like yeah, like it's a good message, like, but it's stuff he's kind of talked about before like on like many previous songs. And personally, I might have been tempted to throw on one of like the bonus tracks like instead, like maybe like that Round the Floor song. I think like would have worked well like in place of this track.
Get up and testify. Get up and testify. Straight up and fly.
Next song on the album, which opens up side 2, is called Testify, which is a track with a lot of kind of swagger and sort of like, but like kind of stripped back sort of like production on it, mostly sort of like punctuated like by like a flute, which kind of throw back sort of to like his sort of like his solo debut album, and like kind of tracks like Clues, like it reminds me like a little bit of, and then you've kind of got like this chorus of voices on it like as well, and it's an alright song, this. I think it was premiered on the special, that Midsummer Music special, and I think it's again it's a good song, but it's sort of typical like of Weller. It's the kind of song which you could kind of write and kind of like bash up like in like his sleep almost, and it's not got particularly inspired lyrics on it. He sort of sings like on it, gotta stand tall, gotta walk the line, you gotta give till you get it right, and that's kind of like the extent like of like the lyrical depth like of this song. So it's not much, it's more just like kind of like a sort of jam kind of song like sort of thing. Like it's a track like which you think it certainly sounds like it was fun to make, like, but it's like it's not really that there's not all that much substance to it. So yeah, for me, Testify would get a 7 out of 10.
Why do we have to ask at all?
Next one up is called That Pleasure, which is a kind of reggae sort of styled song. Like it's not full on reggae, but it's got that kind of sort of like that kind of beat to it, and it's a track which gets my toes tapping, and it's got pretty good lyrics on it, kind of about sort of like fighting sort of social like injustice, sort of things like on it, like get up and get involved, it's now or never, it's time to make that change, get in this together. And I mean, like the well-intentioned lyrics, but they do sound a bit basic. They're maybe not the most deepest lyrics, and it does remind me quite a bit of like the Stone Foundation, which is kind of like a band like which like Weller like has like produced it. Reminds me, it kind of sounds like a sort of Stone Foundation song, this, but it has got a nice string arrangement on it, and again Weller sings the track very, very, very well. So I would give That Pleasure a 9 out of 10 overall.
And every time I try to reach, I fail.
Next track up is called Failed, which is a song which was originally a Japanese bonus track with On Sunset. However, this is a re-recorded version, and it's a got slightly more like electric sort of backing to it. The guitars like a kind of like a bit more like sort of like volume to them, and yeah, I think it's a great song. Lyrically, it's quite sort of like self-deprecating, kind of about like having flaws. He sings with it like, I'm just a coward when it comes to it, and every time I tried to reach, I failed. And I think it's a great song, and I'm so glad that he's decided to put it on a proper album, and like kind of it was too good just to be buried away like as like a Japanese bonus track this. So yeah, for me, Failed, fantastic song, another 10 out of 10 for me. Next up is called Moving Canvas, which is a kind of bluesy song. This, it kind of goes along quite nicely, and again, this is a song which was premiered like back in like November, but like in like that performance like from like Midsummer Music, it was much more rocking. It was a much harder sort of version of it, but by comparison, this one sounds almost like a demo. It's more acoustic sort of feel to it, but it's still the same song, and it's still a great track though. I still think that the track, it does shine through the slightly weaker like production like on this version. Lyrically, I've read that it's kind of like a tribute to Iggy Pop, but it's quite sort of cryptic, like in like this sort of thing. He kind of describes him like as like a moving canvas that is well worn, his body broken and battle scorned. So yeah, it is a great song though, this, but I do just wish that they'd maybe done a slightly more sort of like rocking version of it. I think would have been a bit more effective, like given that the subject like of like the song. So yeah, Moving Canvas would get a 9 out of 10 overall. Penultimate song now, and it's called In Better Times, which is another very nice mid-tempo song list with good lyrics. He kind of sings with it, I thought home was in your heart, I didn't know your heart was so apart. In better times, you'll do all the things you want to do. And yeah, it's an upbeat song. It's got, again, a lovely string arrangement on it. It is just a good song, this. But again, it's slightly lower by numbers, I think. He's not really pushing the boat out too much with this song. I could almost imagine this track fitting on albums like Heliocentric or like Illumination. And it's, yeah, maybe a tad forgettable apart from like the chorus to it, but again, whenever it's on, I do really enjoy the song though. So yes, In Better Times will get a 8 out of 10.
Still glides the stream.
And then we've reached the closing song, which is called Still Glides the Stream, which is a grand and stately ballad, this one here. It's the perfect closing song to the album, with its extravagant string arrangement and well as very strong vocal performance. Lyrically, it seems to be about kind of like an artist like or painter, kind of in like a similar vein to like Hopper, like which sort of like directed like a sort of like a specific painter. This one I think is a much more kind of sort of like general, sort of like made up like sort of song. He sings of it like the man who never was painted images of freedom. He never sold a lot. It wasn't what his public wanted. Now again, this is a song which was premiered on the Midsummer Music Special, and I never and like it kind of passed me by like on that. I thought, oh, it's just a so-so ballad, this one here. But this version is great. You've got a proper orchestra on it, and it's just a brilliant cinematic end to the album. So yeah, I think Still Glides the Stream, a fantastic song, and yes, we'll get a 10 out of 10 from me. Okay, so overall, this album would score 90%. So I do think this is a very, very, very strong album. I think its strength lies in the fact that it's consistently good in terms of quality. Like, no song kind of drags on, and like all 12 tracks like are delivered like in like a very concise 37 minutes. Maybe it's slightly flawed in the sense that it's quite inconsistent musically. He kind of jumps from style to style like on this album, from like the electronic sort of tinges like on stuff like Cosmic Fringes to sort of style council-esque ballads to more like acoustic songs. It's kind of like a sort of like like sort of snapshots like of almost every kind of style Weller has done like throughout like the years. But what I think makes this album certainly so good like is that his songwriting is still as strong as ever. But I just kind of can't help thinking that it's maybe not quite as consistently thought out like as a whole, like as like some previous albums, things like Saturn's Pattern or Kind Revolution or True Meanings. Those records tend to be much more kind of like cohesive wholes, you know. This one, I think, again, like it was maybe like intention to be, like seems to be more like 12 individual songs. And yeah, like there's a small matter like of this being volume 1, like there's been no sort of confirmation like of like whether like we will like ever get a volume 2. Be something what like I'd definitely like be up for, and like you never know, like you might have like already started work on it. But yeah, certainly Paul Weller pulls out another fantastic album here. So yeah, definitely like I think like I wouldn't be surprised like if come December this is like top of the table for my albums like off like the year. So yeah, Paul Weller Fat Pop, I hope you have enjoyed the review, and I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.